Good afternoon. This is a little complex. I'm trying to get used to the technology, so it's taking me a bit of a warming time. Thank you very much, NASCOM, for having me here to moderate this panel. I think it's an amazing experience to be here with technology experts, technology leaders, and discuss issues that are pertaining to our environment and are very pressing in these days. So the track is basically focused on technology, energy fusion, and I want to approach this from the perspective of three issues. So I want to start with the problem. And while we are talking about the problem, I'd like to quote a study that was done in 2015 by an organization called Clean Air Asia, which did a study of about 195 Asian cities. And the study revealed that almost 95% of these cities have unhealthy air. And why is this important? If we look at cities like Delhi, almost 16% of the school-going children have asthma, which is attributed to air pollution. Now, this is not even the total number because you do not have enough data. Now, the other part of the study was that it was a study on what is the reason for this air pollution, and the two main areas that emerged was rapid urbanization, which requires the tremendous amount of energy, and the second is the mobility issues. So I think from the perspective of mobility and energy, today we have two very important players in the market who are going to give us a perspective on how we can address these issues. What are their solutions from the perspective of addressing these issues? And I'd like to start with Kishor and ask him that, I mean, their website very clearly talks about the rapid rate of urbanization, the number of cities that are coming up. It talks about 5 Indian cities growing to the extent that they would have the size and the problems of almost smaller Middle Eastern countries. So I'd like to ask you, Kishore, how is your company looking at addressing these issues? What are you doing to prepare yourself for the environmental problems that we are facing today and probably maybe scheduled to face later?
Thank you, Prarthana. It's really a pleasure to be here on this very important topic. So to come back to your question, Prarthana, I think the point is KPIT's genesis is about cleaner, smarter, safer world. So it is at the heart of clean air is at the heart of what we do. So from that perspective, the overall synthesis for us is we work with all the big mobility players across the world, and we are looking at how we can help them to transition to a cleaner, safer, smarter world. So in that aspect, that is basically I would give the perspective for us to work in this area. So from that perspective, so the one area, of course, which is very natural is about electrification and related technologies. I'm just will give you some idea about this. Is even while we work with globally the biggest players in order to really bring this technology to from the electrification, smart electrification to the world. In India, I think the area in which we work even started very early was how we can bring in certain policies, how we were contributing to the overall policy making suggestions, so that based on our global experience, we can make some valid suggestions when the policy is getting formed. So we are very active contributor to the policy making wherever possible as an independent expert in this area. The second part is, so the first, public transportation is very critical. Like we work with many passenger vehicles, but public transportation is very important. So way back, 10 years back, actually, the first electric bus was presented to Honorable Prime Minister. The idea was to create the awareness, and that's what can happen in India, because we are the country where you may or may not know, but the whole population, like more than 100 crores at that time, I'm sure that number is bigger now, travel by bus in a year. So the scope is very high. So from our perspective, bring this technology to the different way transport, whether it is passenger car, commercial vehicle, buses, etc. So that is the second part. And what we believe is these technologies are, changing. So it is not only electrification, there is a hybrid technology. And now we believe the very important part is hydrogen. So how that is very relevant and important for India, and how we can really develop that technology expertise and enable the players to really commercialize this. These are the areas in which KPIT is working, apart from the fact that any related areas, whether it is autonomous or connected or other part of efficiency, which will really help to become the vehicles more safer or energy efficient.
Thank you, Kishore. I think from what I understand is that yours is a very holistic and integrated approach, which is what I think is very essential, because we need to look not at just one area, but I think multiple areas. And I think the very fact that you're not just looking at electric cars from a private vehicle perspective, but also from a public mobility usage, I think that is the key to the addressing issues of a large country like India. I want to move on now to Neeraj and transition from a very technology digital aspect to the energy aspect. And my observation has been over the last couple of years where I have seen data on renewable energy, and we see that in the country, for instance, if I look at a report, 2022 report of the Carbon Disclosure Project, about 128 companies disclosed on their energy transition trajectory, and they reveal that only about 9% of the energy, the electricity usage, internal electricity usage, is from renewable energy, which is actually a cause of concern, because we're talking about the top listed companies. So I just want to understand from you, and from, of course, the global perspective that you have in terms of how companies are looking at energy transition. What is your commitment to net zero? How do you think it is going to emerge in terms of the whole energy transition dialogue?
Okay, thank you. I think a couple of points you made. The first point that you mentioned before your question was that, it seems to indicate that the urbanization is growing. There is a requirement for more energy. But at the same time, our cities are getting polluted. So the one message that if I were to have my audience go back with today, is that energy is good. We need more of it. Emissions are bad. And this is a very important point, because quite often people mix the two, and maybe the narrative gets a little confusing. The world will need more energy. The world will need more affordable energy. It will have to become more available, and it will have to become more sustainable. And that's a strategic pillar of what Baker Hughes does, which is an energy technology company. We provide the means and the technology and the capability to all our customers to produce that energy and to bring it to the user right from where it is produced. It may be 3,000 meters below the surface, right up to the end point, which is the end user. And so we are an integrated energy technology company. When you talk about transition, I think we need to recognize that the energy transition is exactly that. It is a transition. It is not flipping a switch overnight changing energy from hydrocarbons and coal to a renewable source. It's going to take time, not years, it's going to take decades to come. And so we will have to recognize that as our aspirations grow and we need more energy, we will have to transition from this fossil fuel-based energy to a more renewable energy. And one of the pillars, among others, for Baker Hughes today is gas, because there's an abundance of methane reserves around the world that can fulfill the promise of the energy needs of the growing population, while at the same time reducing our carbon footprint from an equivalent burning of coal. So for every MMBTU of energy produced from gas, you produce about half the emissions that you would get from coal. And so even if you were to generate electricity, if you generated electricity from gas, you would still reduce your carbon footprint without compromising energy security. Now, we all recognize that in the long term, we will have to transition to an economy which is based on solar, wind, hydrogen. And to that extent, we are making investments that will be realized 20 to 30 years down the line and which may append our existing business which is based around hydrocarbons. We will also transition into that zone. We made 5 years ago a commitment that we would reduce our carbon footprint by 50% in 2030 and 100% net zero by 2050. And I'm very pleased to say that we have not backed off on that, and we increasingly accelerate our commitment, investment, and strategy to achieve those aims. Thank you.
Thank you. I think very interesting point you made on we shouldn't equate emissions with energy. We just talk about them as two, the two same topics, but actually there are differences in how we kind of narrate the discussion around it. I want to quickly shift to digitization because I was at the COP at Dubai this year, and it was very interesting for someone who's been through numerous COPs. And one of the things that was really very, very evident was the role of industry at a conference of parties. And there was actually a green zone, which was larger than the blue zone, which is where the policy interactions happen. And I think that's a very positive experience. But what is very striking is the role of digital solutions in addressing major issues of environment or even urbanization development. So I want to ask this question to both of you in terms of what is the role of companies like yourselves in terms of leading the way towards digitization, especially in addressing some of these major problems that we are faced with today?
Yeah. So to begin with, what Neeraj mentioned, I just wanted to add on that and then take up this. As a company, we are also very committed to net zero, and we are also taking a very holistic approach to net zero, and I'll come to that answer clearly. So we are looking at what impact we can make in terms of our facilities and that is one of the answer, is how can we really have the green energy in terms of our campuses, our operations, etc. That is the point number one. So we have been in a position to achieve a very significant milestone in that. The second part is what we can do with the client to make them more energy efficient and help their journey towards net zero. That is the second part. And the third, which is a very important part for us, is how our employees can, beyond work, can really become in their own life a more sustainable lifestyle. So this is the approach we have taken. We have a long way to go. And we believe that's why we have not put a date. But I believe in next 8-10 years, we will achieve this holistic approach in that part. So in this whole journey, in all the three areas, the digitalization is a very important part. Because first thing, if you really look at what we are doing inside our operations, the idea is consume less energy, so minimizing the energy consumption making it efficient is very important. So that is where the digitalization becomes very important. The second part is about the solution now for the clients. So there, if you really look at it, there are multiple things in that. For example, different countries have different drive cycles, as you call. What it means is the average speed of transport is different in different parts. The heat is different, temperatures are different. How you can really make your solution efficient to for a specific condition, that is the other part. The third part is also on the as much as important is electrification, the charging infrastructure is as important. And in the charging infrastructure, how you make it efficient, how you make it quick, that will help in terms of adoption of the technology. So digitalization becomes very important in terms of making it easy for people to adopt technology. Now, the very important part is many of the clients are also trying to see how, when you are looking at using energy is consuming, like electrification, it also becomes a generator of energy, right? So it is home and the car are well connected. So you create generator energy and you consume the energy. And in many countries like Europe, as you know, that they have made their home as a part of making it generating energy with solar or wind, as Neeraj was saying. So from that perspective, how you can really make sure that this whole, it's all connected, it becomes seamless. This is where the digital solutions come in place. So the digitalization is very important for bringing efficiency. It is very important in reducing the consumption and also bringing the holistic approach in terms of different modes of energy.
Thank you. I think I'm going to come back to you on your comment on how you've helped clients and customers digitize. But before that, I want to ask Neeraj. Neeraj, we were talking over a coffee just before the session about about a very interesting case that you were telling us about how your company has been, taking advantage of this digitization. So maybe you'd like to share that.
Yes. So I think I don't want to repeat what Mr. Patil is saying. Digitization of the industrial space is ongoing. We already have software solutions and fully integrated with monitoring asset health and using AI/ML to make sure that we are doing predictive maintenance and reducing the human footprint and reducing our energy consumption. That is a given. I think everybody is doing that, and we have several instances of doing that globally and in India. Now going to a next level, I think we are now seeing solutions which are getting to a point where the AI system and the digitization is not just helping us achieve an assistive role, but taking a dominant role in what we are able to deliver. And I'll illustrate this with an example. When we drill for oil and gas, we actually drill quite complicated well trajectories into the reservoir, which could be like 3,000 to 4,000 meters below the surface. And we have sensors that see this reservoir, and we have a guy with the equivalent of a joystick steering that, just like you would steer a missile to its target. I mean, this is literally an analogy which is very accurate. But what we've now done is that we need to drill a very smooth wellbore, and we need to place that well in the sweetest spot of the reservoir. And what we've now done is we've been experimenting over the past 4 or 5 years of being able to do it in an automated way, where you, instead of doing a real-time intervention, you do a program which sets the objectives for the system, and that system then uses its knowledge and physics to steer that well into the sweetest spot. And we are finding that the AI system or the machine system without any human assistance today is able to deliver wells which are much smoother, easier to operate, and give you a productivity of almost 15 to 20% more. Now, when you do this, you not only help to increase the efficiency of the operation, but you also reduce your carbon footprint of producing that equivalent amount of energy by drilling less wells and having higher productivity. So I think the future is here, and I think we are going to see a lot more adoption with more automation, more connectedness to the sensors right at the end, and of course with all the edge computing and AI that's coming in, the future is here and it's already happening in our space, just like any other industry in the world.
No, I think it's very important to share cases like this because I think we don't really get to hear specific examples. I think it's very important for larger industry to contribute with these examples, and which brings me to my next question, and I think that's going to be our last round. So Kishor, Neeraj just talked about a one case example, and you talked about how you bring solutions to your clients and customers. One of the biggest challenges that India is going to face is already facing and is going to face in the next couple of years is due to the regulatory requirements, not just global, but also in India in terms of assurance and in terms of how to reduce emissions down the supply chain. So I'm just wondering if you could give us some example or some, case where you have been supporting your supply chain, whether it's upstream, downstream, doesn't matter, in terms of technology, digital solutions.
Absolutely. So I think I would like to take a couple of examples and maybe go a little beyond that. One, for example, if you look at lithium is in the world, there are very few countries who have really access. Now in India, we have got little reservoir, but it's not good enough, for the overall demand we have. Just to give you some idea, automotive mobile, we are looking at electrification, full electrification by 2030. If that happens, the consumption by vehicles will be bigger than the steel industry in India. So the demand is huge. So if you really look at from that perspective, it is impossible or practically not possible that we will be in a position to source lithium kind of batteries or the raw material basically. While it will continue to play a major role because it's a very efficient also technology, it will not be sufficient for multiple areas such as storage of energy. And storage of energy is very important. Just like Neeraj mentioned, India is gifted with solar energy and some other energy. So wherever there is an energy we can catch, but ultimately in order to make it usable, we'll require storage energy. So we came up with a solution which is a new technology where sodium could be used for a battery material. So it's a sodium battery. The important part of this is sodium very available in an abundant manner in India and otherwise also in many parts of the globally. So the dependency on certain countries goes down. The second part in this is also, for example, how you can make this solution efficient also. So even then, when you have the particular battery or battery chemistry, what becomes very important is how you minimize the materials which are used in any form. Now, the AI part of the solutions basically will help us in selecting the materials which are available globally. And I will tell you, in my view, this will be one of the most efficient and the largest implication AI can bring to sustainability is on the materials side. And for example, country like India has, as by itself, we have lesser knowledge in some way on the materials than many other advanced countries. But I think AI will change the game. We will be in a position to really make up for those years and just catapult ahead as we have been in a position to do in the past. So AI will help us to really bring solutions which was more sustainable and energy efficient. So these are some of the things which are there, and these are the kind of solutions we can bring to the client.
Fantastic. I think that's very, very pertinent because, the whole challenge of supply chain, I think that the role that digitization can play is going to be something that is really going to need a lot of research and a lot of cases like this. I'm going to give the last bite to Neeraj. Since this is a Technology Innovate Forum, your take on how technology can support energy transition.
So, a couple of things. I think it is very well recognized that no single company will be able to address all the challenges of energy transition on its own. So partnership and collaboration will be key. Number two, there is no silver bullet for saying that this particular technology alone will solve your energy transition need. I mean, fusion may, some people are touting it as the next energy transition thing. But even if fusion comes into being, the distribution and the storage and all of the other challenges will have to be solved together. Thirdly, in our opinion and our strategy, less than 30% of the technologies that are going to be deployed 30 years from now are in place today. The balance 60% or 70% are in various stages of development, which will have an impact maybe 20 to 30 years. And you will have to make investments on multiple fronts. Not all of them will be successful. For example, there are investments, and we are also making these investments in electrolyzers. There are investments in battery technology, investments in hydrogen, investments in carbon separation, investments in carbon capture. There are investments in geothermal technology to drill deeper into the well. That's not something we don't talk about, but the earth itself is an infinite source of energy. There are investments, we have made 2 investments in methane pyrolysis, which allows you to separate hydrogen from methane, which is the most abundant source of hydrogen at the cheapest cost today. So we have made investments in these technologies. We have made investments in technology for using hydrogen as a power generation. So multiple fronts will have to be explored, and we recognize that the investments we make today may not all yield the results, and we'll have to change our business model if some of our investments are successful. So do the best you can today, improve efficiency, and have an eye to the future, and you'll have to commit that investment for a long period of time to sustain and achieve this goal collaboratively.
Thanks, Neeraj. Do we have time for questions? No. Okay, so I'm just going to conclude because this has been a very interesting session for me. I think a great learning experience. But in conclusion, I think we should realize that I think there's no one solution, and we need to work together. And here you have, 2 leaders in the industry talking about how they have tried to bring in different aspects together and trying to address the problem from multiple sources. So I think that is essential. And if we have to look at energy transition, I think it's also very important for us to look at cases and share these cases, because without understanding what is happening on the ground in terms of even small cases like what Neeraj shared, I think it's not going to be possible for anyone to achieve the kind of goals that have been predicted or mentioned through global agreements like the Paris Agreement. Thank you to the audience for being a good audience and listening to us. And thank you to my speakers for their very interesting and knowledgeable perspectives.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
For more content on tech and leadership, subscribe to NASSCOM YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.